Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Good evening and welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. this evening, bringing you all of the news from the farming world in Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Thank you all for joining me. As always, it is Wednesday, 3rd of June 2026. We've had lots of rain over the last few days and unfortunately it seems to be more of the same into next week and cooler as well. So I know lots of you got a chance to get silage made last week during that good spell, but there's still lots of grass left to be cut, so we're hoping for, while the rain is granted, it's warranted and it's going to help with growth, not too much of it, and back to some decent weather then to give a chance to get first cuts I should say, wrapped up this week. Now the programme this evening, in a moment, beef takes centre stage. Keepak's Mick O'Dowd joins me to chat about beef prices and also a new venture with Tesco. It's called the Bright Meat Company. So what is it? Mick is going to tell us all about that in a moment. It's available on the shelves of your Tesco supermarkets. It's more sustainable beef. So we're going to find out about it in a minute. Also this evening, Teagasc and Animal Health Ireland are running calf care events next week. So it's a vital time for calf health. Keeping your eye on the ball is ever so important. I suppose it's at that time where calves are reared, they're out to grass, and you kind of maybe think that the hard work is done and a lot of the physical work is done, but keeping an eye on them and animal husbandry is also ever important at this stage. Tommy Cox from Teagasc will give us a rundown on what those events are about and some pointers on calf husbandry at this stage of the year. Now, David Walsh, chemist, he runs Ballykilcavan Brewery. He was at Bloom last weekend selling his products, but in a recent social media post, he maligned the fact that the smaller independent breweries cannot get next or near large events as they are bought up by the big players in the drinks business. He's campaigning that things need to change, and we'll chat to him later here on the programme. Spoke to David back at the start of his business, about 2018, 2019, I think, a number of years ago, and the County Laois business has gone from success to success over those last years. Now, a question for you. Are you feeling stressed, overworked, overburdened, on the point of burnout? If the answer to any of these is even a mild yes, then towards the end of the hour, we have a lady who could help you. Melanie Downs, she runs equine assisted classes where horses can help you deal with your stress. So more on that a little bit later. Did a piece with Melanie this time last year. She got funding to run these courses and they proved extremely successful last year, and they are being ran again. So it's an interesting one, and when people do it, they always talk about the benefits thereafter. Also, deer management is up for discussion. Michael Keegan from FRS speaks to me about their deer management programme during the hour also. Now, Mick O'Dowd from Keepak's Beef 2020 Club, he joins me here. Mick, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Good evening, MJ. Good to talk to you.
You're more than welcome, Mick. Look, we'll mention beef prices in a moment, but before we do, Mick, I want to talk about the Bright Meat Company. It's a collaboration with your beef, and then Tesco are selling it on their shelves. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, the Beef 2020 Club, your Keepak Beef 2020. For people who aren't familiar with it, Mick, what exactly is it? How do people get involved with it, and what's the premise of it?
Yeah, thanks, MJ. The 2020 Beef Club was developed. It was launched actually in April of 2019 by the then Minister for Agriculture, Michael Creed. Since then, it has grown year on year. So it's a collaboration between ourselves and the largest dairy processor in Ireland, Turlon. And farmers typically they're dairy farmers finishing their own beef, or they're beef farmers that are buying a calf or weaning and finishing it. All the inputs are bought through Turlon, and the animals are typically heifer steer. The animals are typically finished under 24 months. It's an under 30-month program, but typically the animals are finished under 24 months, and I suppose that's one of the big part of what has driven the Bright Meat Company, which is, as you say, a brand that has been developed now in the last number of months, is on the shelf in the last number of months in Tesco Ireland stores. So look, at many of your listeners will be members of the 2020 club, and it's their work and farmers like them that have got us to this point. You know, it was early on, there was probably 10,000 cattle coming through it. We've grown that to approximately 25,000 now coming through every year. And that kind of scale has meant that we can put it on the shelves of a retailer 52 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I remember covering it back in the day, Mick, and the area that was interesting with your 2020 club was getting beef and dairy farmers together to work in synergy, if you will, and there was always an issue over the years, I suppose, beef farmers trying to locate calves, good quality calves, create these relationships with dairy farmers, and essentially that's what you were doing, and it has gone from strength to strength.
Yeah, it has, MJ, and I suppose it's built on like farmers sign a supplier agreement, so it's not the typical transactional nature of the beef industry. It's something innovative, and Keepack has a track record maybe in that regard going back to the 90s with the KK Club of creating those type of supplier programs where farmers, you're linking in basically the consumer, the customer, what they want right back to, and adding value right back down the supply chain. So farmers sign the supplier agreement when the calves are born and the year the calves are born, and then they bring them through with the support of the technical team from the Turlon side and the Keepack side to ensure that the animal is being delivered into the factory at the optimum spec, to make sure that all the various bonuses that are there, and there's club bonus for being a member of the club and buying the feed through Turlon, there's seasonality bonuses, there's breed bonuses. So, and the pricing, the base price is set based on the average of the quoted prices of all the processors in the country. So it's a very clear, predictable pricing structure for farmers to follow. And we would have farmers in it now that are supplying in their 6th year through the programme. So to be fair, you can market it and you can talk about it, but it's really the farmers that have been the biggest advocates of it as they've experienced it, I suppose, and seen the benefits of being part of it.
Yeah, and this Bright Meat Company, so if you go into Tesco supermarkets, you're going to see this new branding, Bright Meat Company, and it has a carbon footprint, reading it here in front of me, verified to be up to 23% lower than standard Irish market equivalent. So I suppose the question is then, like, how is the carbon footprint almost a quarter lower with this meat than it is with something on the shelf beside it?
Yeah, in the main, MJ, it would be due to the age of slaughter of the animals coming through. But because farmers are signing up to the club and signing supplier agreements, that's also giving us various proof points that can be independently verified then by the Carbon Trust. And that's, I suppose, what the consumer and the customer wants, is that any claims that you're making, they're independently verified. So farmers, in addition to bringing their animals through on average younger, up to 3 months younger than the national average, they're also undertaking various sustainable practices on their farm as per the supplier agreement, which is, I suppose, and those proof points are then, as I say, independently verified by the Carbon Trust, and that's resulting in a product range under the Bright Meat Company of up to 23% lower.
And is it more expensive, Nick, this beef as opposed to the competitors?
Yeah, like I suppose the way I would answer that, MJ, is there's a range on the shelves, and it's somewhere in the middle. It's where it's pitched is that affordable sustainability. So there's value cuts there. There's obviously very high premium cuts, and the Bright Meat Company sits in the middle tier, and it's an option for consumers that's their preference.
Very good, Mick. Before I let you go, look, obviously beef prices is something you're speaking about on a daily basis as part of your job. But farmers, needless to say, are unhappy as a result of the drop in beef prices over the past period of time, especially finishers who bought expensive cattle at the back end of last year. What's the beef factory side on this, Mick? Where are we at currently on prices? Have we bottomed out, do you think? Is there a little bit of sunshine ahead of us, or are we going to flatline for another while? What's your view?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt, MJ, it's been very disappointing for us all in the industry, and obviously particularly farmers, where price has gone over the last 6 months particularly. And we all know this. We are export led. 90% of our product is going into international markets, and I suppose in simple terms, the demand is back, and that's what our commercial teams, that's what across the industry, that's the feedback. The way I would look at it as well, I suppose, and maybe link it back into 2020. I just look back over the last 4 years in the club, and while the base price in the club was kind of in between 23 and 24 was around that €5 mark. It took a 50% increase last year. So it was up, the actual base price in 2020 was up closer to 750. That is back now closer to 650 now. So it's back €1. But I would still say it's 35% where it was 2 years ago. Now I know costs have risen as well. So the point I'd be kind of making really is that it's programs like this, like the 2020 Club, that will give a little bit more certainty to farmers, because they are getting those bonuses above the market. They're coming in with their own cattle, bringing them through to slaughter or after one movement. There's not that multiple moves on the animal where if the thing is spikes or floors, you can get caught in that scenario. But look, I suppose we would all be hoping that stability comes into it now, that demand starts to come up. And I suppose what has dampened down that to try and drive that demand, retailers, retailers and food service operators have needed to kind of drop prices to get the demand back, because when it just hits a certain price point, the consumer will drift to chicken or pork or cheaper protein sources. But look, I don't know if that's not really sunshine answer for you, MJ, but hopefully there's stability coming in the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, sure, look, sometimes, Mick, we have to just say it as it is as well. Mick, I'm going to say many thanks for joining me here on the programme. Look, no doubt we'll be speaking to you again about the 2020 Club and indeed this Bright Meat Company. Look, it's a positive thing, though. If something like this catches on and people are more interested in it and more meat's going into it, then look, it's a good thing, and we want as much beef being sold as possible under whatever guise it is. So we'll say thanks for joining me here on the programme, having a chat, and we'll speak to you again, Mick.
Thanks very much, MJ. Talk soon.
Mick O'Dowd there from Keepback's Beef 2020 Club. I'm going to shoot real quick to a break, and after the break we're going to be talking about calf health. Teagasc and Animal Health Ireland are running some calf care events over the country next week. There are 3, I believe. I have to find where they are. I have a sheet here somewhere. And also a word on deer management. If you have any deer on your property and you want to have somebody in that would help eradicate them, then Michael Keegan from FRS is the man to talk to, so stay tuned for that.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, Calf Care 2026 events taking place over the course of next week around the country. Tommy Cox from Teagasc Dairy Beef 500 is going to speak to me about them now. Tommy, many thanks for joining me here in the programme. Very good. You're more than welcome for joining us, Tommy. So we have events.
Yeah, thanks for having me, MJ.
Yeah, we have County Louth, County Sligo, and I suppose closer to ourselves here, Thursday the 11th of June, Simon and Peterborough in County Kildare. Look, we'll talk about the events in a moment, but first, calf care. I mentioned this at the outset, Tommy. It's a kind of a strange time in a way where you probably have your calves just out to grass. You have the hard work done, as in the physical work of feeding them milk powder and minding them for the first maybe 12 weeks of their life. And you get them out to a paddock now and you maybe take your foot off the gas a little, but that's exactly the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, most definitely, MJ. Like, I suppose, as you said, a lot of the spade work is done as regards milk replacement and all that, but I suppose a lot of the skill in calf rearing is, how successfully calves transition to grass. What you want is, get your calves fed the milk replacer, get that rumen development well underway, and then put your calves out to grass. And when they go out to grass, that they're able to utilise and digest the grass, and that's hugely important. And definitely farmers can't afford to rest in their hours now, because calves, they definitely need huge levels of management and monitoring, definitely for the first 6-7 weeks after going out, and even after that, calves need, a high level of management to ensure that there's no setbacks, because when calves do go back, out of grass, it can be very, very difficult to get them going again. And, we're in a year that where probably farmers are after investing heavily in calves. They're after investing in the rearing of the calves, so it's hugely important that the performance is maintained.
Are there any things you see, Tommy, as you're going around as a Dairy Beef 500 advisor and you're seeing calves on a daily basis, simple things that maybe farmers are doing incorrectly, or something that on many farms you would say, hold on, you just need to do this? Is there something in particular at this stage of the year farmers need to be conscious of?
Even keeping calves in an indoor and a controlled environment, farmers have a better opportunity to get more colostrum or concentrate into calves. And that's hugely important in developing that rumen and setting that calf up for that great decision.
Very good, Tommy. We just have a slight delay on the line, which it's just coming across there. It's taking about 7 or 8 seconds. Look, I'm just going to leave it there on the conversation. But in relation to those calf care events, they are taking place, as I said, County Louth, County Sligo, and probably more for ourselves here in the Midlands. Simon and Peterborough in Athy, County Kildare, Thursday the 11th of June. And actually, it's interesting, those events are tying in with, and I was mentioning this to Tommy earlier on, I often look at the Tuesday Independent, as you will hear me speak about here on the programme regularly enough. I'll have a look at it every week and keep an eye on it. And always a very good article from Eamon O'Connell. Eamon's a vet with Summerhill Vets in Nina, big practice over there in North Tip. But he wrote a piece about calf care this week, and a very interesting quote in his article. It said, "There is a temptation as the weather improves and grass grows to be a little bit mean with the meal for calves. My advice is to stay giving it to them." And Tommy alluded to that as well. For the sake of a small amount of concentrate to keep everything right, even herding calves, isn't it a great way of herding them if you have a bunch in the field and they know they're going to get maybe a bag of meal? And obviously, look, it is expensive meal, but when you put it down over maybe 30 or 40 calves, whatever the case may be, I think it pays for itself more and more often than not in relation to it. But everything tying in there, basically, that article by Eamon, what Tommy is saying there, everything is just keeping an eye on calves at this stage of the year, keeping your eye on the ball. And as Tommy quite rightly said, they're so expensive this year, you really just don't want to lose one. You don't even want to think about losing a calf this year after paying what you paid for them in the last couple of months. If you're interested in those events, just pop on animalhealthireland.ie and you will see where they are and times and locations and dates and whatnot. Now I'm going to move across to another animal, another species, and the species I'm moving across to now is that of deer. And I have Michael Keegan from FRS on the line. Michael, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
I can hear you loud and clear. Thanks very much for having me on.
You're more than welcome, Michael. That's perfect. Michael, we're talking about deer. If we rewind the clock, maybe about a year, I think maybe I had you on maybe last July or August, we were talking about deer management and the deer management programme FRS are involved in. And it was just at the very outset of it back then. We're, as I said, not quite a year on, but a number of months on from it now, and you've made great headway. Can you just give us a little bit of background, Michael? What exactly is the whole programme about and where we're at now, please?
Yeah, well, I think I explained previously, our role here is to bring structure to deer management in Ireland. Up to this point, there hasn't really been any structure. Hunters and farmers have kind of been doing their own thing, which is fine to a point, but there is a need in certain areas of the country for a more structured approach, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to bring structure. We're here to try and bring all of the stakeholders together and try work together to come up with more effective deer management solutions across the country.
Yeah, and those deer management solutions, look, as you're down in a part of the world where you have lots of deer in your area, and we obviously have the Slieve Bloom Mountains here, so we're well used to them as well. We're in a particular region of high population. And for farmers who have an issue and have a problem, what you're doing is you're providing a service for them that you can pick up the phone, give a buzz, and you can put them in touch then with someone who can help.
Correct, yeah. So like in most cases, and I've just really stressed this because there seems to be misinformation going around that we're out there to try and take hunting from people, which we're absolutely not. In most cases, farmers will have a hunter, and we will work with those hunters. We'll work with those hunters. Obviously, if that hunter isn't able to cover the ground for whatever reasons, time commitments, family, whatever, that farmer might then ask us, could we recommend somebody else to work alongside that chap? But really, in all instances, the first port of call would be the man who's already hunting there. And obviously, then if that's not working out for whatever reason, then we can put the farmer in touch with a number of other local hunters in the area to get the job done, as efficiently as possible. Because, like a lot of these hunters, to be fair to them, they do a great job around the country, but they are working on a part-time basis. They're not there full-time. They don't have the time. In a lot of cases, they're working full-time jobs, and it's very hard to expect a full-time professional service from somebody who's working part-time or who's only doing it part-time, So in some instances, there's help needed, and in other instances, they're getting on great and they're doing a great job. So we're just there to try and put the farmers or landowners and hunters together where it's needed. Really, that's our function.
Yeah, and you're using
try and set up deer management groups and bring a bit of structure to it.
Yeah, and you're using technology now. You can't look left or right without an app being available for something. And yourselves have an app now. The deer need to be conscious about this. It's called Deer Connect. What's this about, Michael?
Yeah, it's called Deer Connect. So basically, I suppose we would like to try. I mean, ultimately, it would be great to see that app rolled out on a nationwide basis, where all hunters would use that to collect all data for deer. That I'd love to see that. Honestly, we're probably a bit away from that yet. We will roll it out to all of the hunters that are enrolled in the program in the coming months. It basically, there'll be a tag system that they'll be able to tag the deer on site where they shoot it. They'll record the location where it's shot. So it gives an extra piece of traceability to it, like the traceability in the factories. In the game handling establishments is already quite good. They have their own traceability system once it arrives there. But I suppose from the field to the game handling establishment, it will provide that piece which is a little bit lacking at the moment. There is good traceability from the game handling on, but up to the game handler there needs to be a little bit of work done on it, I think, and that'll help with that. It'll just provide. It'll give a time when the animal is shot. It'll give you exact location and a photograph as well, and the animal will be tagged. The tag number will stay with it then through the system.
Yeah, I suppose as well, Michael, when we are talking about this, it is important to flag with individuals so people know, this is about control, and there is a problem here that needs to be addressed, and that's the reason for all of this. And for people who may not be familiar with a deer problem on their land, they are very invasive.
They can be, yeah, and we've 3 species of deer in this country: Sika, fallow, and red. Red is our native species. I think the red deer are probably in the lower end of the numbers in terms of the overall picture. Sika deer seem to be particularly in Wicklow and in other parts in Kerry and Cork, and that Kerry particularly, they're very, very prolific. And then you have a lot of fallow in a lot of the other areas. But like fallow and sika can be hugely destructive to farmland and to forestry if they're in high numbers. And I mean, we have areas up here in Wicklow which would be absolutely walking with deer, like it would be just full of deer. There would be huge amounts of deer here. And there's parts of the Midlands down there that have the similar issues with fallow. So, in those areas where there's big numbers, there does need to be a bit more of an effort put in by all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean landowners and hunters. Landowners do have to get on board with this too and help us to drive this. I mean, we're only here in a sort of a coordination role. Really, if this is to be successful, the landowners really do need to get behind it and drive it. There's a limit to we have 9 staff around the country managing 15 deer management hotspots or deer management units. We are stretched to the limit as it is, and landowners really do need to get with us on this one and push it. If you've got a problem, if I always say to fellas, if you have a crop of spuds in the field and they're starting to get blighty, you're not going to wait until the blight has the potatoes destroyed. You'll get out and you'll get them sprayed as quick as you can. And it's no different with deer or dock leaves or anything else. If you've got a problem with a species, something that's causing you an issue to your grass production or your crop production, if you don't deal with it, it's not going to go away by itself. So landowners need to take that on board and be part of the solution as well. We're limited in what we can do.
If somebody wishes to make contact with yourselves, Michael, what's the best route of communication?
If you contact FRS, we can give you the numbers. We can give you the numbers of your local coordinator. I can actually share the numbers of the local coordinators with you if you like after. And you can put it up on your socials if you want to.
Absolutely, yeah. But FRS is the contact point, and if people are interested, they'll get it. They will get it, and we can share them as well on our socials.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, they'll put us in touch with. They'll put them in touch with their local coordinator in their local area, and we'll take it from there.
Very good.
And for hunters and that, we have a lot of hunters contacting us, I think maybe just looking for extra hunting. That's not really the way it works. If we have a need for a hunter in an area, we will certainly pass on that number to the landowner. But as I said earlier, in a lot of cases, hunters contact us, they register with us, but we may not actually need them at that time. So, don't be surprised if you don't hear from us immediately. We will get to you at some point,
Very good. You're a busy man, Michael, as you say, lots going on in that, and it's something that's going to be ongoing. We will speak to you again here on the programme, and we'll say many thanks for joining me here this evening.
No problem. We'd be happy to come and talk to you anytime.
Michael Keegan there from FRS and deer management over the course of, I think it's a 5-year programme. Look, it's going to go on and on and on. As he said, Wicklow and ourselves here, Laois and Offaly, are 2 of the biggest deer areas in the country. Wicklow in particular is, I saw numbers on Wicklow before, it is eye-watering the amount of deer up in that area, and that is what's occurring there with those management units. Now I am going to have David Walsh Kemmis on with me after. He's from Ballykilcavan Brewery in County Laois, and he's going to be speaking about how the smaller breweries cannot get into the larger festivals to sell their wares. So we're going to hear all about that in just a moment.
Des Doyle here, inviting you to join me for Sunday Brunch on Midlands 103, where we'll slow things down with easy listening from all the decades. We'll have a little Sinatra, some Dusty Springfield, plus lots of musical memories. That's Sunday Brunch every Sunday from 9 until midday, only on Midlands 103.
With Gertie Brown's Bar and Bistro Athlone. Celebrate good company with great food until 9 p.m. Check out their daily specials at Gertie Brown's Bar on Facebook and Instagram.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now I have David Walsh Kemmis joining me on the line. David, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
No problem at all. Thanks very much for having me on.
David, it was 2019 since I was speaking to you last, because I checked my text messages when I was giving you a buzz. I think it was yesterday. And
it feels like it. This is the thing. It goes past very fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we were talking at the time, for people who aren't maybe familiar with Ballykilcavan and the brewery, but essentially you were tillage farming and you wanted to add value. So you continue on. What did you do to bring more value to your enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I took over the farm in 2004, and I suppose malting barley was always the main enterprise that we had on the farm. But it is a tough way to try and make money, growing malting barley and trying to sell it. So what we decided we were going to do was to diversify, I suppose, as you say, add a bit of value to the crop that we were already producing. So we opened a brewery on farm in 2018. We've been brewing ever since, so we brew our beers on site now. And now we have a visitor centre on site, and we have an event space as well. And, it's going pretty well for us, actually. There's lots of challenges, but actually, I mean, in general, it's going pretty well for us.
Yeah, well, you really went for it, David. Like some people might, do something, might start selling some eggs at the front gate. They might set up a little glamping pod, but to set up your own brewery, it is taking it to a really strong level. You went in with both feet. Obviously, significant investment and whatnot to get all this up and running, and then to get the products to market. Takes a while, so it was a brave move.
Yeah, people have said that to me, it was a brave move. And I think, look, at a combination of naivety and a few other things that would help as well. But to me, there was a risk, obviously, in setting up the brewery. But actually, the biggest risk for me was doing nothing, because I could see that really our farm was completely reliant on what I still call the single farm payment. So in terms of, actually trying to make money out of the crop that we grow, that was very, very hard to do. But we were basically trying to get our European money, and that was keeping us going. But that's reducing all the time. I mean, it's been reducing every year since I took over, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get, any sort of support from Europe long term. So, yeah, we decided to take the risk, but it has worked out for us because we're now no longer reliant purely on the farming income. We have that diversification of income now.
Yeah, I see on your website here, one farm, 13 generations, 387 years, one family. And that alone, I suppose, would inspire you to try and make more out of what you have, to keep it in the family and to keep it for all those generations. We're going to talk about your social media posts in a moment. But first, I'm just looking at some of your beers here. I have them in front of me, ballykilcavan.com/beers, and you have from pale ales, red ales, IPAs, brown ales, a lot of products here. And what I'm liking is the artwork. Can you tell us a little bit about the artwork? What am I looking at here when I see this design?
So it's a griffin that's basically on everything. So all the branding we do has a griffin on it. So the griffin is my family crest. It's the Walsh family farm. So the Walshes of Ballykilcavan chose a griffin, head of an eagle and the body of a lion. So it actually does look quite well when you put it into a bit of artwork. And look, we're in County Laois. We're very lucky that there's a whole heap of businesses around us that are able to support us and help us. And one of those is Penhouse Design up in Rathnesca. So they're about a 7-minute drive away from where we are. And they've done all our branding from day one. Back 2017 when we started doing the branding work, they've done everything for us, and I think they've done a fantastic job, because people say that to us all the time when they see the cans, they see the bottles, and it is important. It's important that the beer is good, obviously, but it is also important that your labels and your marketing and branding is very is good as well.
Well, speaking about the product, Dave, this is the reason I was getting you on. I saw your social media post the other day where you've been up in Bloom last weekend. You had a great weekend. You were selling your produce to people up and down the country, but unfortunately, the buck stops with a lot of these festivals because you can't get into them because they're tied up. Tell us a little bit about this, please.
Yeah, so as you say, we're up in Bloom. Bloom is fantastic for us because it is just independent Irish producers up there. There's no big multinationals. You're competing with people on a level playing field, and it's 100,000 people coming through the gates. It's a really great show for us. But actually, I saw during the week coming up to Bloom that Heineken have announced what they call a partnership arrangement between themselves and Aiken Promotions, which means that there's over 40 events, 3 big festivals, and something like 38 big concerts that are going to be exclusively Heineken products. And the way the system works effectively is that a big multinational brewery will come in, they will provide sponsorship, but effectively what they're doing is buying exclusive rights. So that means that only their beers will be able to be poured at these events and no one else can get a look in. So people might have heard about the electric picnic and the fact that we can't get in there. That's exactly the same arrangement. But it happens all over the country, and it means that if you're going to Live at the Marquee in Cork, there's lots of good local Cork breweries that won't be able to get in. If you're going to Boucher Road up in Belfast, if you're going to Forbidden Fruit in Dublin, none of the local small breweries will be able to get in because there's this massive multinational with their 36 billion turnover and 3.5 billion profit that is able to drop millions of euro on this sponsorship and basically make sure that they have the monopoly on it.
Can anything be done about this, David, or is it just international commerce that the big get the large stay getting larger, or would you be looking for possibly the likes of the government to come in and say, look, 10% of these events has to go to local producers? Is that possible? What do you think?
I mean, look, I'm very naive again. I would love to think that there's some sort of way of legislating to make sure that you can support your small businesses. No one has any problem with big companies coming in providing sponsorship for events. Events are very expensive to run and they need money from wherever they can get it. No problem with that at all. It just seems wrong to me that someone can come in with such massive buying power compared to everyone else and just basically price everyone else out of the market. I know in places like Glastonbury, for instance, which is a massive festival, you have a heap of local cider producers in there. There are lots of festivals. I should give a shout out to the likes of, say, Forest Fest over in Emo, where we've been in there since day one. Wicklow Wolf are in there, and you can still buy your big brand industrial beers if you want to. Greenfields, which has been at our farm this year, but was in a FI the previous year. Again, the promoter said to us, would you come in because you're our local brewery? So there are good promoters out there, and it's entirely up to the promoter of the event whether or not they exclude small producers or not. There was a night and day over in Sligo, I heard recently, was the same thing. So it's just, it's obviously it's corporate greed, and that's fine, that's the system we live in, but you'd just like to think there's some way of getting small producers into places like this.
Absolutely. David, I'm going to say many thanks for joining me. We'll speak to you again on the programme, and thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, MJ. Cheers.
David Walsh, chemist there, Ballykilcavan Brewery. Now I'm going to shoot to a break really quickly, and after, Melanie Downs from Horse Knowing is going to join me. So if you're stressed, or if you're worked up, or if you're on the cusp of burnout, this lady is going to be able to help you. Stay tuned.
At Lone Town Centre, where you'll find all your favourite big brands under one roof, like M&S, Zara, H&M, River Island, Sports Direct, Next and TK Maxx. See lonetowncentre.com for this week's special offers and upcoming events.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, last part of our programme this evening, and we have a lady on the line, Melanie Downs, and her business is called Horse Knowing. It's equine assisted learning. Melanie, I spoke to you last year, and we spoke about what you're offering. You're back again with a similar offering for individuals. Tell us a little bit about it for people who aren't familiar with it. What is it exactly that you do?
Sure, thanks for having me on, MJ. So I do equine assisted learning, which is a coaching approach. It's part of a bigger field of equine assisted services such as therapeutic riding, hippotherapy, which could be like physio or occupational therapy, or equine psychotherapy, where you'd work with a counsellor or a psychotherapist. So mine is a coaching approach, that's why it's called equine assisted learning. And we work with people on the ground with horses to support them to navigate challenges they're facing in their life. So it could be something around relationships, it could be around anxiety, not sleeping, burnout, challenging decisions. Maybe there's a life change decision coming up around farming, might be like succession planning, changing careers, things like that.
Yeah, I see here in front of me, it's a hands-on, horse-inspired approach to mental well-being. So people who are listening then are saying, oh, I have no experience with horses. What do you say to them?
Yeah, super. So you absolutely don't need experience with horses, because we approach everything from the very beginning with people who maybe wouldn't have any experience with animals or with horses. I know some of the farming community, obviously everyone's usually working with animals to some degree or other, but we work around from a safe place all the time. We start outside. There's no obligation on anyone to go near a horse if they don't feel comfortable. What a lot of the work with the horses allows us to do is to learn to tune into ourselves, to kind of like get back in touch with like our gut instinct on things, or your gut feeling on things, whether you feel safe to do something or not. So the horses really helps us for that. And then obviously there's choice for everybody and the horse in all interactions. So the reason you very kindly had me on this evening is because I've gotten a little bit of funding from the Department of Agriculture to run a mental wellbeing coaching program for farmers and farm families. So people who, like, it could be the farmer's wife, it could be the farmer's teenagers, it could be someone that works with them on the farm, it could be the farmer themselves, to come for 8 weeks of 1 hour a week sessions, and then running those in County Westmeath and in County Meath in a few different bases. And then anyone can come. Anyone who wants to drive as far as they can drive to get there is welcome to apply for a place. We have a limited amount of places funded, and it starts now, and we run until the middle of October.
Yeah, so the fact that you've got funding, Melanie, is fantastic, and it does take that challenge away from people of having to finance. You know, times are tough on lots of farms up and down the country, and we've challenges with income increases or costs increases, I should say, and that in turn leads to stress. And then maybe you're wondering, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because it's going to cost money. But what you're offering here then is something that can take that stress away, and because you have the funding, then you're killing two birds with one stone. It's great to get the funding.
Absolutely, it takes a bit of work. It doesn't just come on out, but it's really amazing that the department are funding smaller ventures like this, because I know a lot of money goes into some of the bigger health drives. So it's really lovely that they've given a little bit to the equine assisted learning world, and we had some really great uptake last year and some really interesting outcomes for people. I had people with all kinds of different challenges come in, some people who were suffering from anxiety or managing family relationships or managing farm relationships, all sorts of things. If you want, I could share a little bit about one particular participant that just comes to mind. Someone who was struggling a lot with confidence and anxiety, and like, for instance, you're kind of thinking, okay, great to work with horses, but what do you actually do, you know? So some of the stuff we will do will be direct interaction. We might do some sort of leading exercise. So for instance, someone who goes to lead a horse, like say around a little obstacle course that they built, will very soon learn how their communication is working. So this particular participant realised that they weren't given clear directions to the horse. And so then when they went to do something, the horse would be like, oh, no, I'm going that way. And they'd lose the horse, really. And so then that allowed them to see that how they were communicating maybe wasn't as clear as it could be. And on reflection, then they were noticing that they actually do that in their lives as well at home. So they were running into challenges with family members where they might be saying something or trying to communicate something, but it wasn't being taken up the way they expected it to. And the time when they did a little bit more work with the horse, they could see, actually, I could say that in a different way, or I could ask it in a different way. And then down the line, things started to smooth out at home, and it was easier for them to communicate things. So it has a knock-on effect. That's the whole idea, is that we practice things with the horses in a safe environment where there's going to be no kickback from the horse, only the horse is going to maybe not do something because it doesn't understand, because we haven't given it a clear instruction.
Yeah, for want of a better word, Melanie, you won't BS the horse, sure you won't.
And that's it, exactly, MJ.
We've about a minute left, and I just want people to understand how to contact you. What's the best form of contact if they're interested?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is horseknowing.com, all one word. And if you have a look on there, and you can contact me on the website, or you can email me at horseknowing@proton.me. And you will find information about the upcoming programme on there. And I've also distributed it through the farm family networks, and Chagas and people like that are disseminating some of the information. So you may come across it that way as well, or in your local mart or something. I'm also putting posters and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, very good. Horseknowing.com is the website, and as you say, through those and cost is free to participants, fully funded by the Department of Agriculture. No doubt you're going to be busy. Melanie, many thanks for joining me, and we will speak to you again here on the programme.
Thanks so much. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Melanie Downs there, and it is horseknowing.com. In front of me, if I have time to read it, I have participant feedback. I have noticed my mood improving, and family have noticed it too. I am better able to deal with my emotions and not let them get out of hand. The horse has taught me how to relax and rein in my emotions before I get to a bad place. They taught me how to slow down my reaction. So positive feedback there. And if you're interested, website is horseknowing.com. That is it for this evening's programme. I'd like to thank all of my guests here over the course of the hour. We started off with Mick O'Dowd from Beef 2020, Tommy Cox from Chagas, with Michael Keegan from FRS, David Walsh, Chemist, Ballykilcavan Brewery, and finished off with Melanie Downs. The show is repeated Sunday morning, 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. I'll be back with you next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. as always. Hopefully the rain will be behind us and we have a nice bright sunny spell for a few days. And if you want to get us on podcast, MJ Clery, Clery, we will pop up at your leisure. I'll speak to you in a week's time. Good evening.